Army Brats, Chapter 13. The terrible events of the day that had culminated in Charlotte screaming at him had left Tom shell-shocked. He needed some time to recover and regroup, and to devise a new strategy to get Chase to leave him alone. So instead of heading home after Charlotte screamed at him, Tom struck out in the other direction, down Washington Street, through the Central Plaza, and then onto Adams Drive. The sun beat down, and Tom rubbed some sweat from his temples as he wandered past a training field, then stopped at the obstacle course. Another platoon was out running drills, but this time they were working together in small groups. Tom watched as two soldiers lifted a third up to the top of the tall wooden wall in the middle. The second soldier then got a leg up from the first, as well as a hand from the third, and then both reached down to pull the first soldier up. Tom remembered how the last time each soldier had struggled on his or her own to reach the top. It went a lot faster this way. And why would it be faster this way? Because they're doing it together, right? But of course, thinking about that made Tom remember that the last time he was here, he had been with his sisters, and Charlotte had still liked him. The fact that his sister was furious with him, which Tom was still puzzling over, sat heavy and sharp in his chest, like a coil of barbed wire. Tom's face was baking. His lips were dry from the sun, and he realized he was parched. Dad always made sure they had money for emergencies tucked into their backpacks, and Tom figured dehydration counted. So he headed to Patrick Boulevard and the small deli next to the movie theater. "Hey there, partner," the friendly man behind the counter said as Tom walked in, the chill of the air conditioner instantly soothing on his sweaty skin. "Hi," Tom said. This was the first time in hours anyone had been kind to him. And the thought made Tom feel even more alone. "It's a scorcher out there today," the man said. He was wearing an Army Strong cap and an Army Green t-shirt. "Yes, sir, it sure is," Tom agreed, heading to the cooler of drinks. The lemonade was calling, but as he reached for it, his hand brushed the fresh squeezed grapefruit juice. "I don't know how those GIs do it on a day like this," the man said, shaking his head as he thought. Tom's hand froze at the grapefruit juice, the man's words turning over in his mind, because he suddenly realized he knew exactly how those soldiers out on the obstacle course made it through a day like today. They did it by working together. And that had been Tom's tactical error all this time. At the first sign of trouble, Tom had gone solo in this mission instead of building up a team. Now, when things had gotten dire, he was alone and defenseless, struggling up an impossible wall on his own instead of getting a leg up from the people who had his back. The people who always had his back, his sisters. "You having trouble deciding?" the man asked. Tom took a deep breath. "No, sir," he said, grabbing the grapefruit juice, some apple juice, and the lemonade. "I know just what I need." Charlotte was at the back picnic table, painting her nails in brushstrokes so fierce Tom thought polish was probably splattering everywhere. "I'm sorry," he said, pushing through the screen door. Cupcake flew toward him, a bundle of joyful, yipping fur. At least one member of the family wasn't mad at him. Tom patted Cupcake, but almost dropped the drinks in the process. "I got this for you," he said, rescuing the grapefruit juice before it fell and handed it to his sister. Charlotte did not reach out to take it, so Tom set it on the table next to her polish. "I should have told you about what was going on with Chase from the start," Tom said. This time Charlotte looked up. "Why didn't you?" she asked. Tom sat down at the table across from her and began twisting open his lemonade. "I don't know," he said. "I guess it was just embarrassing." It did not feel good to say this, but it did feel good to have Charlotte reach over and pat his arm. "Yay." "Yeah, it really is," she said. "Hey," Tom said, snatching his arm away as Charlotte laughed. He couldn't help joining in, though. "Okay, Charlotte," said, getting serious as she put her brush back in the polish and twisted the cap shut. "So tell me about it now." Cupcake came and rested her head on Tom's lap, and he rubbed the furry spot between her ears as he told Charlotte everything from the pocket knife to the hose to his day of being ridiculed as Sergeant Wimpy. I don't know. Maybe Chase is right. Maybe I am a big wimp, Tom said. Things were better sitting here in the cool shade of the yard with Cupcake and Charlotte and the refreshing lemonade, but the thought of Chase and being called Sergeant Wimpy for the rest of his life still had Tom pretty gloom. You're not, though, Charlotte said firmly. What about the screech of doom? You startle easily, Charlotte said, opening up her juice. But the thing is, everyone's scared of something. Chase might be terrified of snakes or getting stuck in an elevator. This was very hard for Tom to picture, but Tom got her point. And the goal now is to get him to stop, Charlotte went on, because, of course, she saw that a mission was necessary. What are you thinking? Maybe we could figure out what scares him and then take a picture of him, Tom said, inspired by Charlotte's claims that Chase had to be frightened of something. But Charlotte shook her head. No, that's too hard. It's not like we can force him to go skydiving if he's afraid of heights. I think our best bet is showing everyone that, yeah, maybe you got startled by the water, but you're still brave. That sounded good, much better than skydiving. Charlotte really was the best when it came to strategy. I should have told you about Chase the first day, Tom said. Then it would never have gotten this bad. Probably not, Charlotte said in a jokingly lofty tone, but then she looked at her brother and bit her lip for a moment. I'm sorry I yelled at you after school today. No big deal, Tom said. It had been, but now with Charlotte on his team, ready to help him scale the wall, it didn't matter. Still, he was glad she had apologized to him. I'm home, Rosie shouted, racing into the yard so abruptly Tom nearly screeched. Dad said you had a play date, Charlotte asked. Yep, over at Victor's house, Rosie said. She spotted her apple juice and sat down to drink. That's Rosie's new friend from school, Dad said, coming out onto the porch to join them. He was smiling, and Tom wondered if this was indeed true. Victor's okay, Rosie said, wiping some juice off her upper lip. Now, Dad beamed. Coming from you, that's high praise, he said. Charlotte glanced at Tom and raised her eyebrows because Dad was right. That might have been the first nice thing Rosie has ever had to say about any of her classmates. Next time we can have him over to our house, Dad added. He was wearing his Kiss the Chef apron, which meant dinner preparations were underway. Maybe, Rosie said. I told him he can help me find Buddy and Pepper. Lucky boy, Dad said with a chuckle. But first I was hoping the three of you could help me out. I want to make biscuits for dinner, but we're black on flour. Would you guys run to the commissary and pick some up? That's interesting. I've never heard that before. We're black on flour? Instead of out of flour. Okay. Rosie grinned at the military term for being out of something essential. There you go. Sure, Charlotte said as Tom nodded. Dad gave them money and one of the family's reusable shopping bags, and the three Baileys headed back out into the hot afternoon. Tom needs our help, Charlotte told Rosie as they passed by a moving truck parked in front of the house on the corner. Tom suspected moving trucks were on the base most days of the week, considering how often Army people moved. He needs to show some of the boys at school he's brave. Actually, all the boys, Tom admitted with a sigh. And the girls, too. Everyone at school calls me Sergeant Wimpy, he said. It wasn't as humiliating to Tom to say it as he had imagined. In fact, it felt kind of good to have it off of his chest, and it helped that Rosie scowled, her most ferocious scowl, and balled up her fists at her sides. Those boys are the worst, she said. Tom nodded. Tell me about it. And now I have to figure out how to get them to stop. We need to find a way to prove to them that Tom is brave, Charlotte said, lifting her hair off of the back of her neck to cool off a bit. So we need to lie? Rosie asked, her eyes widening. Hey, Tom complained, though of course Rosie had hit on his own fear. You were a scaredy cat about going into Mrs. Watkins' basement in Pennsylvania, Rosie reminded him. Rosie really wasn't helping at all. Okay, but the point is, if we can show everyone that Tom's brave, they'll forget about the ways he's a scaredy cat, Charlotte said impatiently. This was also not helping. Tom had liked it better when Charlotte was talking about how everyone was scared of something, not calling him a scaredy cat. That was as bad as Sergeant Wimpy. Maybe we need a different plan, Rosie said. We could send the soldier ghosts from the haunted house, to get the mean boys. They reached the parking lot of the commissary. Soldiers and families were loading up groceries in car trunks, or heading inside to stock up. That's it, Charlotte crowed, turning to Tom. The haunted house. Tash said everyone's scared to go near it. If you're the first to go inside, they'll see how brave you are. Tom considered this. On the one hand, the house was scary, and the thought of going in was pretty daunting. But of course, that was the point. If Tom could do it, and everyone at school knew, there'd be no way they could keep calling him Sergeant Wimpy. Plus, he wouldn't be alone. He'd have his sisters with him. That could really work, he said to Charlotte. But how will everyone know you really went in? Rosie asked. They might think you're lying. That was true. We could take pictures, Charlotte said, or make a video, Tom said. It could be dramatic with him looking stoic and determined as he headed inside. Maybe they could even add a soundtrack. Charlotte grinned. Perfect! That'll show those mean boys, Rosie added. Roger that, Tom agreed, certain that with his sisters on his team, this mission would be a success. And that's the end of chapter 13. Happy reading, and I'll see you at chapter 14.